Facing the Middle East, our news program that uncovers news in context. It's the place where you meet people you want to know. On today's program, we bring you current on the results of Israel's fourth election in less than 2 years. At stake is whether Benjamin Netanyahu will remain at the helm of the Jewish state. Also on today's program, you will meet Yemen's former information minister who was an expert in gender study. And finally, we'll look skyward to see the next transportation highway. We'll update you on the trial of Prime Minister Netanyahu, which has resumed. Ironically, as the legal procedures were resuming, President Rivlin was meeting with leaders of all of the parties entering the next parliament in order to determine which party, if any, would be given a chance to form a coalition government. But apparently, based on the number of recommendations for Netanyahu, Rivlin ultimately threw down the gauntlet to Prime Minister Netanyahu for the first shot at building a coalition. On election night, the media lines Mohammed Al-Qasem and Maya Margit were live at Likud's and the Joint List's headquarters. Let's take a look.
The preliminary results are in. And with no clear winner, it appears that Israel's political deadlock is poised to continue. Neither the Likud's right-wing coalition bloc nor the center-left anti-Netanyahu bloc appear to have a Knesset majority. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called on his rivals to join him in forming a coalition.
אני מושיט יד לכל חברות וחברי הכנסת שמאמינים בעקרונות הללו. אני לא פוסל אף אחד. אני לא פוסל אף אחת, ואני מצפה מאלה שמאמינים בעקרונות הללו לנהוג בדרך דומה כלפינו.
It's Israel's fourth elections in just 2 years. I'm standing here at Likud campaign headquarters in Jerusalem, where the atmosphere is one of celebration. Heading into elections, Likud supporters were optimistic that their candidate would win.
אני מצביע נתניהו בגלל היכולות שלו, בגלל הכוח שלו, בגלל הכריזמה שלו.
And as exit poll results rolled in, many remained positive.
זה עדיין לא גמור וזה ילך ויגדל. ברור, זה עוד לא נגמר.
Still, early results show that it will be difficult for Netanyahu to eke out a 61-seat Knesset majority. And it looks like Naftali Bennett, who heads Yemina, will play a crucial role in any coalition building over the coming weeks. Likud Minister Miri Regev hinted as much.
אנחנו, כפי שאמרנו, בנט אמר, מדינת ישראל היא מעל הכל וצריך לעשות מה שנכון למדינת ישראל. ומה שנכון למדינת ישראל זה ממשלת ימין מלאה, יציבה ל4.5 שנים בראשותו של בנימין נתניהו.
Let's head over to the northern city of Shfaram, where Midi's bureau chief Mohammed Al-Qasem is covering the joint list.
Festive mood here tonight at the Joint List headquarters. They're very happy with the results. They're hoping that they stick. They hope that these numbers stand for the final results on Wednesday. And they're also hoping that Prime Minister Netanyahu will not be able to form a coalition government.
But the euphoria was deflated on Wednesday morning, when Joint List members and supporters awoke to the news that the 9 seats they were projected to win had evaporated as vote counting continued. The fallout of the split among the Joint List parties proved severe.
بالطبيعي هذا أثر على مجتمعنا بالنسبة للتصويت ويتحمل المسؤولية من خرج عن الخط الصحيح.
Sami Abu Shhad, a member of the Joint List, said the split hurt the Arab chances. He accused the leader of the Arab United List, which is expected to win 5 seats, of aiding Netanyahu.
النتائج بكل حال سيئة عزيزي. التمثيل العربي في الكنيست نتيجة لسياسة منصور عباس انخفض بشكل كبير.
This election turnout was the lowest in years. Netanyahu crisscrossed the country courting Arab voters, quite a contrast to his previous strategy of fear-mongering and incitement against the Arab citizens of Israel.
لا شك حتما يعني نتنياهو ساهم مساهمة مباشرة في عملية انشقاق الموحدة، ساهم مساهمة كبيرة في عملية إحباط نسب التصويت في المجتمع العربي. هذا كان بارز، هذا كان واضح للأسف.
Meanwhile, the far-right religious Zionism list, promoted by Netanyahu and advocating for the removal of Arabs from the country, outperformed expectations.
I surely hope that Netanyahu will not be able to form a coalition with the extreme fractions.
The final numbers may not come out till Friday. Benjamin Netanyahu's party will have the largest numbers of seats, but it's not a clear victory. Still, with savvy wheeling and dealing, he may convince Naftali Bennett to join him in a right-wing government, securing the prime minister's seat for a record 6th time. Reporting for the Media Line, Muhammad Al-Qasim, Shafa'amr, Israel.
A bird in hand could accomplish a great deal. You can follow the latest news at themedialine.org.
Facing the Middle East is the news program that unlocks the hidden truths of the world's most contentious region. Meet bold personalities impacting the changing Middle East and the visionary women and youth you will want to know. Joined by the Media Line's Mideast Bureau Chief, Muhammad Al-Qasim, and correspondent Maya Margit, the issues are revealed in context through the eyes of the people on the street. Facing the Middle East with Felice Friedson. Go to themedialine.org.
Next, we visit an outstanding woman, one of the bravest women I know. A young woman, Nadia Al-Sakaf, has already gone where many would not dare to go. Born and raised in Yemen, Nadia was editor-in-chief of the Yemen Times and later served as Minister of Information in the internationally recognized government of President Hadi. Just recently, she completed her PhD in politics, researching gender in Yemen.
Welcome, Nadia Al-Sakaf, to Facing the Middle East, and it's a privilege to have you join me today.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here.
It's not often that I get an opportunity to speak to an expert on gender studies, let alone dealing with Yemen. Looking at the country where you were born, describe the disparity between those that have and those that don't.
Gender gap in Yemen is huge. Yemen is the last, according to the World Economic Forum, in terms of the gender gap between men and women. Since 2006, we were reported as the worst place in the world to be a woman. That being said, that doesn't mean that there aren't any amazing pioneer women. Although the majority of Yemeni women do not have control over their bodies, their future, their education, so many women are now becoming pioneers and leading.
Huge population in Yemen, 30 million people living there, and yet, can you try to illustrate the numbers of women that are in higher education that actually could be viewed as the leaders of tomorrow?
The statistics are very sad. 1 in 2 women over the age of 15 cannot read or write. Imagine what it's like for women in university or in the workforce. Less than 20% of women are in the workforce. In fact, most of them are in agriculture as unpaid employees or unpaid workers. Women in healthcare, every day, 9 women die because of unattended pregnancy and delivery complications. Women do not have access to water and sanitation. Women are not there in the politics as much. Although there are few women in the limelight, they are not representative of the greater women group.
Yemen is in turmoil in the midst of the civil war. And looking back, when you were on the streets of Sana'a and elsewhere, handing out pamphlets to get women and men to vote, do you feel that the country can emerge and actually come back to that point where young people will be able to vote and actually educate each other?
Imagine that you don't know if you go out of your house whether you'll be coming back or not. Imagine when you send your children to school where they get a very pathetic education, whether they will come back or not. Imagine if you have an emergency healthcare situation and you need service and you cannot afford it. Now with the COVID, it's rampant. There aren't any health facilities. There aren't any professionals in the medical sector. Even vaccines are not allowed to enter the country. And so many places where the Houthis are controlling, they're not allowing vaccines to be distributed. It's very far from the time when we were talking about democracy and politics and the future. Now it's just about survival.
You just obtained a PhD in gender studies. And Yemen, as I said earlier, is a great classroom. What do you feel that you can bring to Yemen that doesn't exist today?
I think, as I said earlier, this is the time for women to shine, or this is the decade for women in power. Men have already been tested and failed, unfortunately, and without giving the rightful place and authority for women, we are going to miss out. I truly believe that women can bring change and that they can bring the society together for a better future. The last cabinet we had in December was all men, and that was a huge disappointment. It has not happened before in the last 20 years. And we created a campaign against this. The women's movement came together. I think this might be the opportunity to fight back, because we have reached rock bottom. And the only way from here has to be up.
Well, let's talk right here about you, a very resilient woman who had to work her way up. And an interesting story, because it was not easy. Your father was killed by President Saleh for human rights issues. Your brother took over the paper, and subsequently you were at the helm. Looking back, did that make you stronger? And how hard was that?
Every experience and challenge in your life makes you stronger. You have to build on it. And I relate this to like a journey in life. And then you're walking through this journey and you're building up like patches on your skin, scars of the battles. It just makes you a different person. But you can say, this I got when I was discriminated against. This I got when I was fighting for human rights, and so on. And it makes you who you are, but it makes you colorful. It makes you inclusive. It makes you empathetic, and definitely makes you stronger. And for me, today, as we speak, I am sentenced to death by the Houthis in absentia. So I cannot even go home to my own country. But still, it doesn't stop me. It doesn't say like, okay, Nadia, just give up and go live a normal life. No, I have to do something, because otherwise, what's the point?
Do you trust your news sources? Are you tired of one-sided reporting? You need to know the Media Line to know the Middle East.
The world needs news you can trust.
The Media Line's reporters are in the streets of Cairo, Jerusalem, Ramallah, and Sana'a, bringing you stories in context which shape your views and decisions. The Media Line is the first independent, non-profit American news agency covering the Middle East. Now in its 20th year, it's the best-kept secret in the news business. Discover for yourself why the Media Line is relied upon by government officials and media outlets worldwide.
Bringing you the stories which impact your lives.
Support the trusted Mideast news source today by going to themedialine.org. You need to know the Media Line to know the Middle East.
I remember standing in Yemen with you in your office. We were with the rabbi from Sana'a, and since then, many of the Jews, almost all now, are out of Yemen. The Houthis insisted that they leave Yemen, the last few. So much has changed looking back at the history, the rich history of Yemen. What, in looking back at that moment, we were talking to the rabbi, and he too knew that many Jews were leaving, but he wanted to stay. What went through your mind at that moment?
We were losing our diversity. We were losing our richness as a country. And it's not just religious freedoms and attacking on minorities. It's also within the Muslim faith, within the Muslim groups. Now there's Shia and Sunni, and even within Shia, there are special sects that have elitist powers. It's actually all about power. How do you dominate others and use the pretext of religion? Unfortunately, our heritage, our rich culture is being chipped at one piece after the other. And I cannot say that we are now the rich country that we used to be culture-wise.
You mentioned you were marked by the Houthis. How did you flee?
I had to flee with the support of the United Nations. I fled under disguise. I took my 2 young children and waited for hours to be allowed to enter the chartered plane by the United Nations. I was disguised as one of their staff or employees, and they helped me get into the plane. Somebody within the security of the Houthis was very helpful. He was God sent. I don't know how to explain it other than that. He said, "Leave it to me. I know who you are, and good that it was me who found out. Let me help you." And me and my 2 young children, I had my daughter, she was 8, my son, who was 2 years old. And then my husband was away, and I wasn't able to reach him because of the blockade. So I didn't even know if I was going to ever be reunited with my husband. And this man took my passport and he said, "You're the minister, I know, just leave it with me." And we were the last to enter that plane. But then while we were heading towards that chartered plane with the other staff members of the UN, somebody among the Houthis recognized me, and then he reported me. And that person who helped me told me to run, and I literally ran to the plane. And because of the chain of command, that it was slow at the time, by the time the instructions came to arrest me, I was on the plane and the plane was in the air.
The new American administration has taken the Houthis off the terrorist list, but there doesn't seem to be a cessation of violence. Do you think that the Americans are doing the right thing?
I think the Americans are doing the right thing for America. I don't think they're doing the right thing for Yemen, because you need to be consistent in how you define terrorism and what a terrorist is. It cannot be according to your whims or what serves you. But eventually, we as Yemenis have to come together and stop this war. No matter how many envoys or how many diplomats try to intervene, if the Yemenis do not decide to leave the weapons and talk to each other, nobody else can help them. So I understand the politics, the external or foreign affair politics of the United States. I don't think they suit us at this point because we are suffering. And it's not about humanitarian, because humanitarian aid does not reach Yemen anyway, even if it reaches the borders. There's more to it. I think Iran is playing a role in it. There's the regional politics. We are just pawn in this larger story. I don't think the Americans are seeing it correctly, but eventually it's up to us as Yemenis.
Journalism is in trouble. There's cries everywhere for people who are in journalism to understand, who really care about journalism done properly. And you, as an editor of the Yemen Times, looking now at where we are, what would you say?
I still believe that there is hope. I think the hope comes in the hands of men and women, especially younger ones who have not given up. I think the future is female. I think leadership in the hands of women is going to make a difference. I believe that the diaspora will play a very strong role in building Yemen again. And I think we have to learn from our history and from the mistakes that are happening all around us in other regions. Because if we don't learn from our past, we cannot build our future.
You said this is the year of the woman. And for us at the Media Line, women are always talked about for years in highlighting great women like yourself. For the audience at large, because it's becoming a momentum, and you see people starting podcasts and it's all about women today, what would you say?
I would say this is the decade for women in power. I would say that this is our opportunity, and notwithstanding the differences we have in cultures and communities and perspectives, together as a global movement, women can help the world be better. And we do it with our supportive men. It's not us against them. We need to have friends and family and male colleagues who are also supportive. They are our rocks, but it's our time to shine.
On that note, Nadia Al-Sakaf, thank you for joining me on Facing the Middle East.
Facing the Middle East is the news program that unlocks the hidden truths of the world's most contentious region. Meet bold personalities impacting the changing Middle East and the visionary women and youth you will want to know. Joined by the Media Line's Mideast Bureau Chief, Muhammad Al-Qasim, and correspondent Maya Margit, the issues are revealed in context through the eyes of the people on the street. Facing the Middle East with Felice Friedson. Go to themedialine.org.
The month of March marked 10 years of bloody civil war in Syria. The fighting there killed hundreds of thousands of civilians and fighters, while millions of people were internally displaced or became refugees in neighboring countries and around the world. Syria has been a messy battleground. Although the conflict started as a civil war, it has become much more than that. It's a proxy war that has divided much of the Middle East and the world, and has pitted regional and global powers against each other, and saw the creation of many alliances. The country is fragmented into several areas under the control of different groups and powers. So, to understand why the conflict has lasted this long, it helps to know who controls what part of the war-torn country. President Bashar al-Assad's army was unable to achieve an outright military victory. According to Jusur for Studies Center, Damascus' staunchest backer, Russia, intervened on the side of Assad in 2014. And with the help of Moscow, Tehran, and the Lebanese Hezbollah fighters, government forces managed to control about 2/3 of the country. Russia has 83 military positions distributed over more than 10 provinces around the country, such as Hama, Damascus, Latakia, and Tartus. As for Iran, it has about 131 military posts concentrated in 10 governorates, most of them in the south in cities like Daraa, Deir ez-Zor, the capital Damascus, and its countryside, and Aleppo. 116 military sites are affiliated with the Iranian-backed Lebanese armed militia Hezbollah, with its presence concentrated in Damascus and its countryside, Idlib, Homs, and Daraa. Hezbollah is considered a terrorist group by the US. The Syrian opposition is fragmented. The last Syrian rebel stronghold is in the north, in and around the city of Idlib. With Turkish military support, the Free Syrian Army, FSA, controls about 11% of the country. Turkey has about 113 military sites, mainly in the north, around Aleppo, Idlib, Raqqa, and Hasaka. Meanwhile, the Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, control more than a quarter of the area of Syria east of the Euphrates River, with US military support, of course. The international coalition led by the US controls around 33 military sites, which are concentrated in 4 governorates: Al-Hasaka, Deir ez-Zor, Raqqa, and rural Damascus. Hundreds of US soldiers are still there to support the SDF and protect the oil fields. Aside from sporadic clashes, the situation in Syria has reached a military and political deadlock.
For more explainers, visit themedialine.org. The first usage of the drone was wartime when Austria utilized it in their assault on Venice. But the device then was a balloon carrier. And in 1907, the first quadcopter, a 4-rotor drone invented by the 2 French Breguet brothers, took to the skies. Israel, which leads worldwide in high-tech innovation, is readying for the Sky Highway. Maya Margit looks at the largest commercial drone test and preparations.
These clear skies could soon become commercial highways crowded with traffic. Can you imagine your next hamburger being delivered by drone? Israel is now conducting large-scale testing on a national drone network that'll transport everything from food to e-commerce orders and medical supplies. The Israel Innovation Authority, together with other government bodies, has launched a pilot program. The central control system is located in the northern port city of Haifa.
In order for us to create the leap from the uses of one drone to many drones, we need the drones to communicate in between so we know how to control the space.
It's all part of what is known as the Naama project, which aims to revolutionize the future of mobility and airspace management. In the city of Hadera, drones from several companies are flying simultaneously hundreds of times a day.
What they're going to be testing out behind me are 20 different drones launched at the same time, and the goal is to see how they interact with each other in a single managed airspace.
5 different companies are currently taking part in the program, including Simplex. This station is one of Simplex's prototypes. It shows how commercial drones could make a drop-off into secured boxes in a simple and effective way.
Next year we're going to deploy 15 of those in Tel Aviv, providing actual deliveries for e-commerce purposes. Our goal is to provide customers with the ability to receive their delivery in approximately 60 minutes.
Once their order reaches one of these stations, customers receive an SMS on their mobile device that notifies them to come and pick it up.
The main benefit is, first, it's much greener. Second, it's much faster. And third, it's much safer for the operators.
With the Innovation Authority's pilot test, a commercial drone network is one step closer to becoming a reality. But several obstacles remain before these deliveries become as everyday as apple pie. For one, the cost of operating drones is still high, and they could run into traffic once they're up in the air.
I think we'll be able to make deliveries, but only after arrangements are made with the aviation authorities, whether in Israel or abroad. If we can successfully demonstrate that commercial drone activity is safe and won't harm flights or public safety, things will start to happen.
Copterpix has come up with Drone in a Box, an ingenious lightweight solution that can be used for security purposes.
The drone itself weighs less than 300 grams, which means that there is no regulation permit required. The system can thus be deployed everywhere.
The Naama project is expected to continue over the next 2 years. Many challenging scenarios will test the limits of aerial deliveries and prepare for a future where the skies could soon be filled with the buzz of unmanned aerial vehicles.
From Hadera, Maya Margit reporting for the Media Line.
Before we close today, I'm taking a moment to speak to the importance and value of journalism. As technology continues to advance, we need to utilize it for the benefit of the good, but not at the sacrifice of long-form writing, sourcing, and analysis. It is our duty as journalists to bring you information. We need your partnership to take the time to learn the issues, read the stories, and share the knowledge.
News needs trained journalists. The Media Line, the first American nonprofit news agency covering the Middle East, has mentored scores of students from prestigious American universities and around the globe. We are one of the best kept secrets. Universities are partners. Students receive credit. In order to bring you trusted news, we need support for our future journalists. Please make your tax-deductible gift today. Go to themedialine.org.
Thank you for joining us on Facing the Middle East, where we unlock the hidden truths of the world's most contentious region. Join us at themedialine.org for news you need to know and trust.